Aloha ladies, welcome. I hope everyone's doing well. Today, I wanted to talk about quiet hour at my house, quiet time. When I had little kids, when my boys were babies, I loved quiet time. I loved quiet hour. So what was quiet hour? What is quiet hour? It's an hour, give or take, after lunch. So what we would do is, and it's an hour that everyone rests. So what we would do is we would have lunch. After lunch, we would do a quick cleanup. Okay, I would make sure the kitchen is cleaned. And this also included me eating my lunch. So as much as possible, I always ate my meals, and I always continue to eat my meals with my children. And we always eat dinner as a family. And now my husband works from home during the week. So we have lunch as a family. And I love it. I feel like it's such an important time of the day for us, because if we haven't, even though we're all together all day long, it doesn't necessarily mean we're connecting, right? We're all kind of working on our own things. So after lunch, quick cleanup. Okay, and then what I would do is the kids would all go up to their rooms. And we've been through so many different seasons of our life, and quiet time looked different depending on how old everybody was. But when the kids were smaller, they would, when I had like a 4 and a 2-year-old, or I had a 6 and a 4-year-old, when I just had the two boys, that looked different than when they were 8 and 6 and I had a baby, right? But this is what you do. The main idea is everybody up in their rooms, doors shut, in their beds. Okay, now what are they doing? Ideally, what they're doing is they are lying down, resting, and reading for an hour. Okay, so what do you do with kids who can't read? What if they're 3, they're 2 or 3 or 4, and they're not readers yet, or even 5, right? And they're just starting to read. What do? They pretend read, right? They look at pictures, and they will they look at books with pictures. They get a lot of picture books, and they're still reading. And what I did, because they will run out of books pretty quickly, I would send them upstairs with a pretty big stack, right? So that meant library trips weekly. Like, we would usually go to the library at least once per week, and I never limited how many books, or what, for the most part, what kind of books my kids could bring home. And another interesting tip that I learned was that, this was through my homeschooling, is that I learned that typically when your children are reading for fun, they should typically be reading 1 to 2 grade levels below their reading level. So when we're, if my son is in grade, let's say he's in grade 2, so when I'm homeschooling him, we're reading at a grade 2 level or higher. But for library books or storybooks, I would be giving him books that are 1 to 2 grade levels below that, unless he picked something that was more challenging and harder. But it's more so that when they're reading for enjoyment, they're not struggling or feeling like they're working hard. Okay, that's just an aside. Anyhow, up in their beds, reading. Now, if you have kids who have a hard time staying in bed for 30 minutes or for an hour, what I would do is 30 minutes in bed reading, okay, or playing in their beds, but really I would say reading, even though I knew that's not what they were always doing. And the reason I did that, the reason I did that is because often they would fall asleep. If I told them to go and read and lie in their beds and rest, they would end up falling asleep. So that's why I would say 30 minutes lying down, resting. After that, I would call up to them and say, okay, the 30 minutes is up. Or if I could hear them asking, how long has it been? Then I would tell them, okay, your 30 minutes is up. You can now go and play quietly on your floor or in your bed. And what I would do is I would provide them with bins of toys that usually never came out other than quiet time. So they were excited. It felt like it had a little bit of that Christmas or birthday energy to it, right? And that made them stay up there longer. and if they were, so then I'm trying to think. So then when they were older, because my younger kids never say never, but for the most part, younger kids in our house don't get screen time. Okay, and then as they get older, like minimum requirement for us was you have to be like other than the occasional like movie night, our younger kids never, TV's not on during the day when they're up, and TV only would come on at night once the kids have gone to bed. Once my children can read really well, that's when I allow them a little bit more screen time. Okay, unless we were traveling. If we were traveling, then like on the plane and stuff, I would allow them to watch like little cartoons and stuff. But now that my children are older, then they do. I mean, I have teenagers. They're 16 and 14, so obviously they do. They play video games, and they, you know, like they game with their friends. They watch, you know, whether it's YouTube or different types of, you know, videos, and that's fine. And I still to this day limit screen time, and I increase it as the kids get older. But and so the older kids would then use their quiet time. They would do their video games during quiet time, and that also worked out beautifully because the younger siblings would be tucked away in their beds, so they were not watching the screens with their older siblings. And now what did I do during that quiet time? Anything I wanted. I loved it. I mean, depending on what kind of morning I had, I would use that to like go and rinse off and just cool down in the shower. I would have a bath, maybe I would do a pedicure. I really tried to make it a point for that to be my quiet time as well, because I always wanted to make sure that I was showing up to be with my children as the best version of myself. So that was important to me because I didn't necessarily, you know, get that growing up, right? So so I would love it. I would love that 1 hour. And there was a point where I actually had to do some like deep inner healing because I was healing from child sexual abuse. And having that 1 hour of quiet time was such an amazing gift to myself, because it allowed me this container in which I could go, and I had a program that I was working through. It allowed me, I knew that it was a safe container. Everybody was tucked away in bed. I could tell the boys I was resting. I locked my door. I was able to work through my program for 30 to 45 minutes. Whatever came up, you know, I knew it was safe for it to come up, and that's why I was able to have such deep clearing. So stuff would come up, emotions would come up, I would release them, I would process it, then I would end with a meditation, quiet sitting, and if I had time I would go shower, and then I was able to come out and rejoin my family refreshed and ready to be a mom again. So I hope that that gives you some ideas of how to take care of yourself by implementing some quiet time in your house, especially if you're with your children all day. It can get to be quite a bit. So I hope that gives you some ideas, and I encourage you to try it. Aloha.